In this video, we're going to find the inverse of a parabola by restricting the domain. So this problem's asking us to find the inverse of f of x equals x squared minus 8x minus 3, and tells us to restrict the domain if necessary. Well, certainly, we notice right away we are going to have to restrict the domain, because any graph of any parabola is never one-to-one, right? It either opens up, like the graph that we see here at the bottom of the screen, or it opens down. In either case, it can't be a function. Or, excuse me, it can be a function, it can't be a one-to-one function. It cannot pass the horizontal line test. So, in order to make the inverse that's a function, we're going to have to restrict the domain. To do that, let's put this in standard form so we can determine where the vertex is. So let's complete the square. Let's move the 3 over to the left-hand side to clean some things up. We've got x squared minus 8x on the right-hand side. Divide by 2 and square it gives us 16. If we add 16 on the right, we need to add 16 on the left. So we get y plus 19 equals x minus 4 quantity squared. Subtract the 19 over, we'll get the function in standard form as f of x equals x minus 4 quantity squared minus 19. So the vertex is the parabola 4, negative 19. So we're going to restrict the domain at the vertex and off to the right. So we'll restrict the domain from 4 to infinity. So now we're ready to find the inverse function. Replace f of x with y. Reverse the roles of x and y, so we get the equation x equals the quantity y minus 4 quantity squared minus 19. Add 19 to both sides. Take the square root. Ordinarily, we get plus or minus when we take the square root of both sides of an equation. But remember, we've restricted to the interval from 4 to infinity for the x's. When we do that, it makes a positive square root. Now to finish this off, we'll add 4 to the other side, and just to save some space, I just went ahead and replaced the y with f inverse of x anyway. So we get the inverse function as 4 plus the square root of x plus 19. Here's the original parabola. The blue graph here is representing the restriction from 4 to infinity. And then the other blue graph here is the reflection about the original blue graph about the line y equals x, or the graph of the inverse function. One thing I should mention is that when I did the restriction for the domain earlier, I did make a slight typo. If I go back to the previous slide, when we restrict our domain here, we really do want to include the vertex as well. So I should have had a bracket here on the 4. And not a parenthesis. So it should be bracket 4 to infinity, because we really do want to include the vertex here in our function when we do our inverse. And I denoted that here by actually putting a point where the vertex is.